The Sunday school lesson for September 17th, 2023 is The Fall of Jericho, Joshua chapter 6, verses 2 through 4, and verses 12 through 20a. To the viewers and subscribers, welcome to my channel, The Backstory. I am Audrey. If you are new here, please notice the agenda. I will share the backstory, read the lesson text, and offer a brief lesson summary. After watching the video, if you feel like this video is of any value to you, please subscribe, like, and share. Thank you so much in advance as you help me to grow my channel one viewer and one subscriber at a time. The backstory takes us to the book of Joshua. We think of Joshua's role as a military commander before that of being a prophet, if we think of him at all as a prophet. He is remembered much more for his actions with the sword than for his proclamations of God's messages to the Israelites. But was Joshua a prophet? For one thing, he was Moses' successor, and Moses was called a prophet. Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 15. Furthermore, God spoke through Joshua to give directions to Israel, and that is one characteristic of a prophet. Hebrews 1 and 1. Joshua challenged the people to put away their idols and commit themselves fully to the Lord, a common task of prophets. And Joshua may be considered a prophetic forerunner of Christ. The names Joshua and Jesus both mean the Lord is salvation. As Joshua led ancient Israel into the promised land of Canaan, Jesus leads generations of God's faithful people into the promised land of heaven. The first mention of Joshua in Scripture is in Exodus chapter 15, verses 8 through 16, a context not long after the Exodus and the parting of the Red Sea. So, by the time of the events of today's lesson text, Joshua had witnessed many mighty works of God. The book of Joshua begins with the Lord's exhortations to Joshua following Moses' death, repeating several times the directive for Joshua to be strong and have courage in fulfilling his sacred duties. Joshua had been assured of the Lord's presence, just as the Lord had guided Moses. God's presence with Joshua also points to Joshua's calling from God, an event that precedes a true prophet's ministry. The book of Joshua goes on to trace the Israelites' entry into the promised land, Joshua chapters 1 through 5, conquests and settlements in it, chapters 6 through 21, and covenant renewal, chapters 22 through 24. Christians have come to consider the book of Joshua to fit the category of history in the Old Testament's 5-12, 5-5-12 arrangements of its 39 books, 5 books of law, 12 of history, 5 of poetry, 5 by major prophets, 12 by minor prophets. But to Jewish readers, the book of Joshua was part of the former prophets, along with Judges, 1st and 2nd Samuel, and 1st and 2nd Kings. Though the former prophets are very different from latter prophets like Isaiah or Hosea, these books are concerned with God's guiding the people through his chosen leaders. The first such leader in this section was Joshua, followed by the judges, and so on. The writer of the book is unknown, though it is likely he was a prophet or a priest himself. Joshua chapters 3 through 4 records how the Israelites crossed the Jordan River on dry land, much as the previous generation had crossed the Red Sea on dry land under Moses' leadership. Following further spiritual preparation of the people, including circumcision of those men who had not been circumcised during the wandering in the wilderness, Joshua chapter 5, verses 2 through 9, and through the observance of the Passover, chapter 5, verse 10, the Israelites were almost ready for the task of conquering the promised land. Verse 2, and the Lord said unto Joshua, see, I have given into thine hand Jericho, and the king thereof, and the mighty men of valor. Verse 3, and ye shall compass the city, all ye men of war, and go round about the city once. Thus shalt thou do 6 days. Verse 4, and 7 priests shall bear before the ark 7 trumpets of ram's horns, and the 7th day ye shall compass the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow with the trumpets. Verse 12, and Joshua rose early in the morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord. Verse 13, and 7 priests bearing 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord went on continually and blew with the trumpets, and the armed men went before them. But the reward came after the ark of the Lord, the priests going on and blowing with the trumpets. Verse 14, and the 2nd day they compassed the city once, and returned into the camp. So they did 6 days. Verse 15, and it came to pass on the 7th day that they rose early about the dawning of the day, and compassed the city after the same manner 7 times. Only on that day they compassed the city 7 times. Verse 16, and it came to pass at the 7th time, when the priests blew with the trumpets, Joshua said unto the people, shout, for the Lord hath given you the city. Verse 17, and the city shall be accursed, even it, and all that are therein, to the Lord. Only Rahab the harlot shall live, she and all that are with her in the house, because she hid the messengers that we sent. Verse 18, and ye in any wise keep yourselves from the accursed thing, lest ye make yourselves accursed, when ye take of the accursed thing, and make the camp of Israel a curse, and trouble it. Verse 19, but all the silver and gold and vessels of brass and iron are consecrated unto the Lord. They shall come into the treasury of the Lord. Verse 20a, so the people shouted when the priests blew with the trumpets, and it came to pass, when the people heard the sound of the trumpet, and the people shouted with a great shout, that the wall fell down flat. A brief summary. The frightened inhabitants of Jericho took refuge in the city and kept the gates securely barred day and night. Regardless of all their defenses, however, the Lord assured Joshua that the city had been delivered to him. The plan to take the city seems impossible to secure victory. But then again, crossing the Jordan had seemed impossible. God's battle plan was carried out for 6 days. The armed guard led marching around Jericho. Then came 7 priests blowing their trumpets, followed by other priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant to the middle of the column. The rest of the soldiers formed the rear guard. We can only wonder what the inhabitants of Jericho thought of all this. Perhaps they thought it was the beginning of a lengthy siege. We know the people of Jericho were afraid of the Israelites. Joshua chapter 2 verse 11. Their fears and anxiety must have escalated when the marchers did not stop after one circuit, but circled the city 7 times. Following the loud trumpet blast of the priests, Joshua repeated the command, "Shout!" That shout was Israel's battle cry. Joshua assured the people, "The Lord has given you the city." A recognized way to acquire wealth rapidly is by means of the spoils of war. For the Israelites, the distribution of such plunder was directed by the Lord. However, the spoils of war were treated differently this time. Jericho was the first city to be captured in Canaan, and everything in it was dedicated to God. Thus, the city was described as devoted. All precious metals were to be given to the Lord's treasury. The plan of battle was carried out exactly as God had given it. The trumpets sounded a long blast. The people shouted at the top of their voices. The city wall collapsed. The men of Israel swarmed into Jericho from every side, and they took the city. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Join me soon for the next backstory. Stay safe and may God bless.